Hi, I'm Quentin Schultze, author of the book An Essential Guide to Public Speaking. An Essential Guide to Public Speaking. I'm working through the various chapters. Take a look at the other videos as well. And right now we're on chapter 5. Speak extemp, or the full word is extemporaneously. Extemporaneously. We call it extemp. It is the best way to speak. It's the process of speaking that works the best. And I'll explain why in just a minute. But learn it and put it into use. I want to convince you right now that if you put the extra work in to speak extemporaneously, you're going to be a better speaker. And it's going to serve you through your life in all kinds of situations. For example, a job interview is basically extemporaneous speaking. You go in there, you've got some idea of the things you're going to say, you've got a resume, and you're going to say something. Speaking extemporaneously is speaking from an outline. From an outline. So when you go into a job interview, that resume is like your outline that you speak from. Yes, it is. So think always of extemporaneous speaking as speaking from an outline. The outline is what guides us, and we know that outline. We know what we're going to say about each of the points on the outline, and we say them. We don't craft an entire speech, write it all out, type it out, print it out, and then speak it. That's manuscript speaking. There's a time and a place for that, particularly when you get into things like CEOs of corporations that have to give a short speech in a very difficult situation that has all kinds of legal implications, and every word they say is critically important. But the vast majority of speaking that's really good and helpful for people is extemp. Now, why is that? Well, one reason is extemporaneous speaking carries a kind of authenticity. We come across as being authentic, believing in our heart and knowing in our minds what it is that we're saying. It has authenticity. When someone just takes something and reads it, it seems like they're reading something that maybe somebody else wrote, or maybe something they don't believe in their own hearts. This is a big problem today in preaching for younger people. Younger people often do not like preachers in churches where the sermons are all written out and then just read. Now, somebody who can write a speech out and then read it in a style that's like they were speaking it extemp, that's a special gift, and some people can do that. But overall, I would say it's not as effective with younger people who are skeptical today. So authenticity is really important. Another thing about extemporaneous speaking is that it helps us know better what it is that we're going to say. Now, why is that? Because of the process involved. Extemporaneous speaking is about starting with a lot of information, narrowing it down. The outline gets smaller and smaller. And each step as we go through that, we take to mind and to heart more of what it is that's going to be in our speech. What happens otherwise with a manuscript, we say, well, I got it all down there in the manuscript, and then when I get up there, I'll deliver it. But we don't necessarily know it as deeply. So the preparation for extemporaneous speaking, of going through that outline and getting it down narrower and narrower, is really helpful for knowing what it is we're going to say. And then also it helps us with self-confidence. We get self-confidence by developing the outline and practicing. How many times should you practice with this little outline that you create? I like to speak from at no more than an index card with 3 points to it. That's it. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story about this. You remember from the outline visually. So as I work down the outline, I start marking it up. Now imagine this here as an outline. I got 3 points on the outline. And I'm looking at those 3 points and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I need to cover this one. I check it. I circle this main idea over here and I mark it up. And then I grab another color and I start looking at this over here. All of this is marking up the outline so that I remember it, because we remember things visually. And then finally I get down to that little index card after having gone through all of this marking it up to remember, to see it. I see it. So here's the funny story. I'm speaking at a commencement, a university commencement. And just before I'm going up to deliver the commencement speech, I reach in my pocket and I pull out a blank index card. I wasn't noticing, but the president of the institution was next to me, and he saw me with this blank index card. And I'm looking at that card, I'm looking at that card. Then he goes up and he introduces me. I put the card back in my pocket. And in introducing me, he says, "This should be an interesting speech," because I was just looking at the speaker's notes, and there's nothing there. And the audience erupted. Well, what was going on was this. I designed the outline for an index card, and I'd gotten it all down to that card and memorized. I could see what's on the card with all my little markings. I could see it in my mind's memory. And I carried the blank cards to make notes on and all, but I pulled one out, being pretty confident that I had the outline in my mind, in order to look at that and see on it, even though it was not written on there, what my outline was, and put it back in. And he thought I was not prepared. True story. So we speak extemporaneously. We speak from an outline. And as we mark up that outline and practice it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, maybe 7 times, whatever works for you, we more and more know what we're going to say. So when we are speaking, we are able to stand up and speak from that outline. One last wonderful thing about extemporaneous speaking, and this, I don't know why this is not taught more. People should know about this, but extemporaneous speaking is an opportunity to use pauses well. To use pauses well. I just used a pause. So I got point, I got all this marked up, I got it in my mind, I get up there, I've got my little notes, and I'm looking at that outline on the card, and I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to say. I'm reminding myself. I don't have to say it right away. No, I don't have to say it right away. I say it when I'm ready. Pauses are okay. Pauses give the audience a chance to think about what we just said. And while they're thinking about what we just said, then we prepare the next thing we're going to say. Sure, a pause that's 15 minutes, that's too much. Is a pause of 15 seconds too much? Maybe not. In other words, short pauses, appropriate pauses, are very helpful for both the audience and for us. So never feel like you have to keep rushing with extemporaneous speaking. You'll get into trouble. You'll trip over your own words and forget what you're going to say next. You won't be able to visualize what's on that index card. Go at your own pace. Keep it moving, but use those pauses. You can do this. Extemporaneous speaking is the best form of servant speaking, at least in my experience. So I want to encourage you to learn it and to do it. You can. Thanks.